doing? This is Ruben with Philosophy. If you liked any of my past videos, please subscribe to the channel. Please comment or please like the video. It shows your support and it shows that this information is helping at least someone. Today I want to talk about the basic book list. The book list for all the philosophy students, anybody who's joining in this gathering of knowledge. I talked about in the video of the system of success, which includes audios, books, events or seminars, relationship, and then giving and receiving recognition, participating. And I talked about how books and reading is so profound. I touched a little bit on it, but I'm going to touch a little bit on it more today. Readers are always leaders. Readers are always leaders. Readers always become leaders. Leaders are always readers. And readers always become leaders. If you look at super successful people rarely watch TV. They're rarely on their gadgets. They're rarely on their phones. For entertainment, they're usually reading. They're reading and reading and reading. It's not very common among the regular population. But if you look at a super successful person, they're always reading. Bill Gates is a good example. He talks about how he reads, I believe it's an hour or so a night or more. Many other successful people, they talk about their reading, and even if they don't, if they're super successful, they're reading. Reading. And it's very profound. It's a very profound thing to do, because when you read, I talked about how you're using your imagination. No image is given to you, unlike watching a television show or documentary. You're using your imagination and you're 100% part of the whole process. For example, when you're listening to an audio, you're still hearing words and you're still hearing sound. So you're not fully 100% part of it. When you're attending an event or a seminar, you're seeing the person talk. You're also hearing words and sound. And you're watching the other crowds. So you're not 100% fully there, and you're not 100% involved in the creative process. Sure, you use your imagination as well, but not as deeply as when reading. When you're reading, you're creating everything, the whole image. You're reading the word, and our brain, our mind thinks in pictures. We don't think in words. When I tell you think of an elephant, you don't think of the word elephant, of the lettering. You think of an actual elephant. The same thing here. When you're reading, you're 100% engaged in the creation process as far as using your imagination. Thus, you're creating very deep and ingrained neural pathways. You're getting the information really inside of you and part of you, and that is the most effective way to get information or data. A part of you is through reading. It's also done through writing, but that's another video. But main thing is reading. I mean, just look at it. Just look at super successful people who have stayed successful for a long time, and you don't see the drop. So usually, if a successful person becomes successful, they have their peak, and then sooner or later they'll drop little bit or they'll drop a lot. But just look at if you would hang around for about a week with a super successful person who doesn't have the drop and they sort of keep rising and rising and rising. Sure, they have their little not so good days, but that's normal. But they're rising and rising and they're becoming better and better by the year. Either more financially stable or their business is growing or whatever they have going is growing. If you look at people like that, if you were to hang with them for a while, you would see that they don't have that they're big readers, huge readers. If you look throughout history, at the leaders, at the super successful people, they've always been huge readers. Huge readers. At the beginning of the century, it was probably reading was probably more effective than now. Back in the days, several years ago, reading was more effective because reading became your entertainment. It was your entertainment. You see, the reason your imagination is so important when you use your imagination is because you're not only are you ingraining the information more deeply within you, but a lot of chemicals from your brain are being released. Hormones are being released. Serotonin is being released. A lot of chemicals that bring you vitality are released through using your imagination. Endorphins, and makes the your brain chemistry much more effective. The chemicals in your brain, they become more effective. Your brain has more good, has a good chemical charge. Thus, your comprehension and your competence as far as seeing information and taking it in, and your focus increases. It increases dramatically. I mean, this is a big stereotype, or it could be a big uh, comment that I'm about to make, but you know, super, if a huge reader, if you find someone who's a huge reader, usually they're very intelligent and they actually live a long time, and they're very, they're healthy. They're not really very sick. They usually have their life in order. If you look at fraternities where super successful people have come out of them, for example, maybe like the Freemasons, it's a good example. Yale Skull and Bones, and other fraternities or clubs, such as maybe the Trilateral Commission, and all these quote secret society clubs. One thing that they're taught, it's, for example, the Freemasons. They're huge readers, and I was told by an actual Freemason that reading is the main thing. Reading, reading. If you find a person who is a ferocious reader, or a person that reads a lot, if you look deeper in their life, usually they're successful. They're very successful, and it's because reading, it's such a huge empowerment tool that you can use. And for the most part of the of the human history, most of the population was illiterate. They couldn't read or write, and that was a disadvantage. I talked about in one of my other videos how back in those times when most of the population was illiterate, reading and able to read or write was a privilege. It was something that only the high class did. And if you knew how to read or write, you were considered almost royalty. You know, it's almost or very important, almost like today for someone who has a PhD, a doctorate, right? We consider them very high up, very important, very knowledgeable, and they're very respected. The same thing was with reading. But the important thing is imagination, using your imagination. For example, I remember when I was a kid, my parents didn't, I really didn't see that many gadgets. I had a few, but really, as far as toys when I was a kid, I had a couple of toys, but none of them were battery operated or these fancy toys, right? It was mostly just a couple of toys, a couple of little superhero figurines, and little soldiers and tanks. I remember as a kid, I had the most fun by myself because I would create in my image all these battles and all these situations with my toys. And I think that's a reason why I'm very comfortable being alone. I'm not dependent on having somebody with me. I'm very comfortable alone. I could stay at home and have so much fun by myself. I'm a very loner guy, if you want to say that. I love relationships and I appreciate them a lot. And I have friends and I've had relationships and I will continue to have relationships. But I'm not the type of person who, you know how there's people who need someone and they feel like they need someone to talk or to always have someone by their side, yeah, either a relationship or very very close friends. I have close friends, but I'm not dependent on having somebody. I'm very comfortable alone because when I was a kid, I remember I had the most fun. I rarely hanged out with the other kids in the neighborhood because I had so much fun by myself, playing with my toys and just in using my imagination. I was a kid who used his imagination a lot to high degrees. And that is why I think I am who I am to this day. And I've always had a good source of, can I say this? Sort of good picture of what I want to do, and I've always had a good. I've had good chemistry with my brain, with my thoughts. Right, I've always had good chemistry, and I think this is also a reason why I probably had very I went through a time when I was in my teens. I went through a hard time with fighting depression and fighting anxiety, and a lot of fear and anxiety. I think it's part of because I've always used my imagination a lot. But I conquered that, and I went through that, and you know. But that's the key, using your imagination. And also, when you use your imagination, remember, your brain is a transmitter and receiver of frequency. So when you're reading a book, a good book on self-help or on how to make your dreams come true or how to do this or you're studying something, remember, or a positive book, remember you're creating this all in your mind. You're 100% creating it. the thought process and the pictures in your head, thus you're transmitting it without resistance because you're creating it as the words come about. And thus your transmission to the universe or to God for positive, it's very strong, and thus you will receive it. That is, for example, I remember when I got introduced to this list that I'm about to give you guys years ago. I remember when I started reading, I wasn't a good reader. I never read, right? But when I started really engaging in reading, I started manifesting things in my life faster and better things. Very good example. I remember I was reading Think and Grow Rich for the first time. And I was really engaged in Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Really engaged in it. When I read that book, so many money making opportunities came to me out of nowhere that I was shocked, and it allowed me to develop relationships that I have to this day that are very special to me from very smart and valuable people when I read that book. And that's what you'll notice when you get to engage in reading and you do it every day. And start out small, start out with a page, a sentence, but make sure you read every day. And it's not, the important thing is not the amount of material you read, but how long do you read it? That's the important thing, the time. How long can you read? Not how much can you read. How much do you read? It's how long can you read? That's the important thing. If you even if you're moving at a slow pace, move at a slow pace. Doesn't matter. It's how long. You know. If you say, well, I'm gonna read a page a day, and maybe you read a page that first day and then you miss the next 3 days, and you say, well, I'm gonna make up for them, I'm gonna read the next 4 pages. It's better if you would say, I'm gonna read 15 minutes a day, right? And in those 15 minutes you get as far as maybe 2 pages because you're reading at your own pace. That's better than reading the 10 pages in one day. That's how very valuable reading is. And, you know, reading is very important. And if you're a student of your philosophy and you're following this information, you have to become a massive reader. You have to become in love with reading. And it's going to take time. If you've never read before, you're going to hate reading. So that's why you have to start small. Start with a paragraph a day. The key here is to do it consistently every single day. When you go to the restroom, if you say, well, I don't have time to read, when you go to the restroom to handle your business, you're in there for 5-10 minutes. Take a book with you, read a paragraph, read a page. The thing is to do it every day, even if it's just a little bit, even if it's just a sentence. The thing is to start developing a habit of reading a little bit every day. That's the key to becoming a great reader and to fall in love with it, is by doing it every single day, even if it's just a sentence. Even if it's just a sentence. And that's the key. To read every single day, even if it's just a sentence, even if it's just a paragraph. Do a page a day. Start small. Don't say, I'm going to read a chapter a day. Start small. Maybe you cannot do a chapter a day. Maybe you could do a page a day. You could do a paragraph a day. Do that. And slowly, with time, you'll want to read more. You'll want to read more, and more and more and more, and you'll enjoy it much better. And when you read, this is also a must that you must do. And with technology today, you don't even need it, but it's a little bit better if you do. Is to grab one of those old-fashioned dictionaries. Grab one of those old-fashioned dictionaries and have it with you when you read. And if you don't have an old-fashioned dictionary, you could use your phone. Your phone, you get on Google and just look up the word and you'll get the definition. The reason is this. L. Ron Hubbard, the founder of Scientology, which is highly criticized and highly condemned and a huge controversy. And I'm not saying that it's not here. I'm just saying that this is what this man discovered. And I've found it to be very true. He discovered that when you're reading, for example, when you're reading and you come and you come to a word that you don't know the meaning of it, your brain goes into an emergency mode, an urgent mode. And thus, everything that you read from that point forward will not make sense and you will not grab it fully in your brain. Your brain goes into a confusion mode. And that is why you need a dictionary. When you come across a word that you don't understand, grab your dictionary or grab your phone and look up that word. And know the definition of that word. If you do this, your comprehension of what you're reading will be highly vibrant and you will understand what you're reading. Have you ever read and then you get to the end of the page and you're like, what the heck did I just read? Like you were gone, your mind was lost. Well, this is what happens when you come across a word that you do not understand. Your brain goes into a confusion mode, and they call it an urgent or emergency mode. And if you don't get the definition of it, everything you read from that point forward, you will not you will be confused about it. You will doze off, or you will not get what you read. And it's very effective when you use a dictionary. When you use a dictionary or your phone, get the definition of the word. Okay, so finally, here is the list. This is the list. This is the books that you need to get. And they're not in order, but if you want to start with one, start with the one that I'm about to mention first. And I suggest you get this list. And it doesn't they don't have to be in order, nor do you have to read one book at a time. You could read multiple books at a time, or you could read one book at a time. It's up to you. It doesn't matter. There's no right or wrong here. The key is to read and read consistently every single day, even if it's just a little bit. The first book is The Magic of Thinking Big. If you want to start with a book and you've never really read, start with this one. If you're new to self-help, start with this one. Even if you're advanced to self-help and you know a lot of concepts, a lot of information, this is a great start. It's always refreshing. Very great book. And the first two chapters are very, very important and very valuable. So I suggest you read this book first. It's the first two chapters, especially the first two chapters. The second book is See You at the Top by Zig Ziglar. See You at the Top. The next one is See you at the top. It's a book on the mind and how to. It says it on the cover. How to resolve your stinking thinking and go back to being positive. It's about being positive and thinking positive. The next book is Ask and It Is Given. Is by Esther Hicks. Esther Hicks. She apparently channels an energetic entity called Abraham. She channels it in, and Abraham is it's an energy that it's basically what she says is they're connected to everything. It's almost like a connection to God, right? They're connected to God, and they know all and see all. And they wrote a great book called Asking It Is Given, and it's based on the law of attraction. Great book. I suggest you really read this book if you're into philosophy or the law of attraction. And that book actually is probably out of all these books right here, many books out there, it's probably 99.9% on track with the truth, with truth, with actual helpful and effective information. So that's a very important book. Next book is The Go Getter. The Go Getter. It's a very inspirational book. Focuses on work ethic and the motivation. Gives you the confidence to work. Next one is Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Next one is The Law of Success in 16 Lessons by Napoleon Hill. The Law of Success in 16 Lessons. The theory is that Napoleon Hill wrote first The Law of Success in 16 Lessons. Andrew Carnegie hired Napoleon Hill for a 20-year commission to study the richest people on planet Earth. And in 20 years, he did this. Then he came out, then he was asked by Andrew Carnegie to write a manuscript and to, about what he learned from these people and see if there were any common denominators between all of them. And he wanted this manuscript to be focused mainly on money. And he wrote The Law of Success in 16 Lessons. The theory is that Think and Grow Rich came from The Law of Success in 16 Lessons. The thing is that The Law of Success in 16 Lessons is very thick. It's longer than Think and Grow Rich. It's a very thick book, but a lot of great information, and much more deeper than Think and Grow Rich. So the reason when you read Think and Grow Rich, it's mainly the same information you will find on The Law of Success in 16 Lessons. The Law of 16 Lessons goes beyond, like it has way more information than Think and Grow Rich. But both of those books are highly recommended for you to get. This part of the basic book list. The next book is The New Cycle Cybernetics. The New Cycle Cybernetics. This book focuses on the mind and the power of the mind. And it shows very scientific studies as well, how powerful the mind is. Talks a lot about the mind. Next book is The Secret. The Secret. There was a movie done about this book, and the book came out. It was a huge bestseller. I think it came out in 2005, 2006. Huge book. It gives you an idea of what the basic idea of what the law of attraction is. If you're new to law of attraction, if you don't know what it is, that is a great book for you to get a basic idea. And even if you're advanced, it's still a great book to have around and to touch up on it. The next book is How to Win Friends and Influence People. How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. This book came out at the beginning of the century, long time ago. It's a very old book. But that book is so effective and will change your life because it will teach you how to win friends and influence people. And this is very, very crucial in life, in business, but more especially in life. Because if you don't have friends, if you don't have friendships, life is very dull. Life is about friendships. Life is about friendships. You know, many. I heard a very wealthy man once say, when you get everything you want, when you get the yachts, when you get the planes, when you get the money, when you get all the caviar, you tasted all the caviar you could try it, you realize that it's not about the money. It's about the person who you become and the friends that you've gained through your journey. So that's a great book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. Great book. Next one, The Magic of Believing. Magic of Believing. Arnold Schwarzenegger, Liberace, I think Bruce Lee. They all said that this is the book that helped them to realize and help them to be successful. I think Phyllis Diller as well. The Magic of Believing. Next one is The Power of Positive Thinking. Another book that came out years and years ago. Very effective. Talking about the mind and the power of positive thinking. An older version of See You at the Top, if you want to say that. The next one, The Game of Work. The Game of Work. The Game of Work talks about work and how to make work for you and how to make it fun. How to make work not a sacrifice or something that you have to do. You know, you look at people in your job and they're like frustrated or they're like they don't want to be there. This book teaches you how to make work for you. It's the game of work. How to make it fun. How to play it as a game. Very good book. The next one is Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. It's a great book, bestseller. Came out years ago as well. Talks about on the financial side a little bit more, but it talks about great realizations. And it's a great stepping stone to move up on having that positive and abundance mindset and how to move from it. And the next books are Christian books. And if it offends you, if these books offend you, then don't read them. You could just read what the books that I've told you, and you'll be fine. But the next ones are Christian books, and I would suggest you read. There's three specific ones. One is Hung by the Tongue, Hung by the Tongue, and what you say is what you get. And the last one is The Tongue of Creative Force. They're Christian and they're very biblical, but they talk about how your words create your life and how what you say can manifest in your life and how powerful the biblical scripture says the tongue holds life and death. Life and death, is held in the tongue. Very important. And other books that you should read, I would suggest you read. They're also Christian. Again, if it offends you, don't read them. But very helpful books on how to change your mindset and how to make it more positive and how to realize how powerful you are. And it's books by two authors, two pastors. I would suggest you get all the books from Joseph Prince. Joseph Prince. Joseph Prince is a pastor from Singapore, but he's wrote a series of books, and he talks about from the biblical scripture, but in a different type of message that it's very unheard of. He calls it a grace message. It's a grace church, a grace movement. And it's a very different view than the regular view people have of Christianity. And then I would suggest you get all the books from Joseph Prince. And another great author is Joel Osteen. Joel Osteen, it's great. He gives some great talks, great sermons in his church. So anything from Joseph Prince and Joel Osteen are great, especially Joseph Prince. I really love his books. And I also all the books from Esther Hicks, from Abraham Hicks, all the books from them are great as well. So you got the basic book list. Now it's time to read, read, read every single day. Even if it's just a page a day, even if it's just a paragraph a day, read. Have it laying by your bedside and read a sentence. I'm telling you, it's that little. That's how powerful it is. You could read a sentence. Just make sure you do it every day. Read a sentence, have it by your bedside, and read a sentence when you wake up, or read a sentence before you go to sleep. Or you go to keep a few books in your restroom. When you go, you can read a paragraph. Keep some in your car. Take some to work, and read on your break, on your lunch. You know, instead of being on your phone watching YouTube videos, get a book and read. It will help you invest in yourself. Invest in yourself. It will pay off bigger dividends in the end. So you got the basic book list. Read. Remember, leaders are always readers. Leaders are always readers. Leaders are always readers. And readers always become leaders. You are a leader. You are a winner. You wouldn't be listening to this if you weren't one. Thank you for watching this video. If you like this video, please subscribe, comment, like the video. I'll see you next time.